1,200 kilometres north of Perth, Exmouth is our departure point for a corner of Australia that has staged one of the greatest ecological comebacks of all time. It's a 10-hour voyage off the Pilbara coastline to a glorious archipelago of 250 islands, surrounded by coral reefs. The Montebellos, an underwater wonderland that looks like it's never been touched. But just half a century ago, it was almost blown off the face of the earth.
And it's amazing when you think that 3 atomic bombs blasted the hell out of this place. You'd expect that we'd just see devastation. No coral, hardly any fish, and it's nothing like that.
My guide is wildlife filmmaker David Ireland.
There are corals here that I have never seen before.
A man who loves the Montebellos for its beauty.
Wow, look at this.
And its ability to bounce back from near total destruction.
It's just a wonderful place for people like me to come that just love animals. I want Australians to really realise what a treasure, what a heritage this place is.
But it's not just natural heritage that has shaped the Montebellos. It was the stage for one of the Cold War's most secretive chapters. After the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II, the British joined the nuclear arms race and chose the Montebello Islands to test their new weapons. It was 1952.
Now. Back in the 50s, the Australian government, the British government, they regarded this whole region as just nothingness, just worthless.
Can you imagine any government today agreeing to a nuclear bomb test in a place like this?
I think they were just ignorant back then. Thought, well, there's not much here, who cares?
Ground zero for the very first test was the beautiful Main Bay, where the British set off a bomb even bigger than those dropped on Japan. It was placed on a decommissioned Royal Navy frigate called the Plim.
The ship was moored 400 metres offshore. The plutonium bomb was down in the hold, roughly 3 metres below the waterline.
We had to turn our back to it. The explosion was huge and something I'd never ever thought I'd ever see.
61 years ago, Max Kimber was a new naval recruit, a wide-eyed teenager from Perth on his first voyage with the Australian Navy, assigned to help the British. He took these historic photos.
How did you feel watching it at the time?
18 years of age, I thought, what a magnificent thing to be able to watch something like this. You know, not too many people ever watch an atomic bomb go off, and I thought I was blessed until years later.
The bomb did its job, vaporising the frigate and everything in its immediate vicinity. The only feature down here is the one part of HMS Plim that didn't disintegrate.
It blew the ship into a million pieces.
The propeller with part of the drive shaft attached. The bay was obliterated and even now looks like an underwater moonscape.
Just be blown into oblivion by a bomb.
The shockwave underwater would have taken out everything in the vicinity, everything from whales and dolphins to turtles, right down to the smallest little commensal crab.
And 4 years later, they did it again. 2 more bombs.
They set off 2 more horrific charges on the actual islands, and the mushroom cloud went something like 30 kilometres into the air.
While the immediate impact on the islands was devastating, the effect on the humans took some time to appear.
In the early 60s, I started to feel it. I started to get bad skin cancers, and they just got slowly worse. In 1 year alone I had 36 cancers cut out of me, all malignant cancers.
Today, Max Kimber bears the terrible physical legacy with great stoicism. Back then, he was most concerned about the impact the blasts had on the wildlife, especially when he returned to the Montebellos a year after the first detonation.
At the back of the island, there was thousands of dead turtles. We couldn't believe it, how many there was.
Big turtles, little ones?
Babies, full grown, just littered the beach with them. They've just crawled up and died there.
Six decades on, the scene couldn't be more different.
See these really big guys?
Yeah.
These are loggerheads. They are huge.
This is unbelievable.
Whoa, look at this. You ready, Ellie?
Across the world, loggerhead turtles are an endangered species. But here, we see more than 40 in this bay. They seem oblivious to the debris still lying around from the nuclear tests. But you can understand them being wary of humans.
And this is 50 metres from where the bomb went off.
That's it. They blew up the frigate, and yet here we have this amazing nesting sites for turtles. Let's find some more, eh?
Yeah.
And at this time of year, you don't have to go that far, but you do have to tread gently. It's the breeding season, and many come onto the beach for a siesta, ahead of a busy night of egg laying.
And they had 50 years where humans came nowhere near this place to replenish their numbers.
Yep. Well, these turtles have probably never seen a human in their life, ever. This is like going back to Galapagos when the first humans ever went there, you know. This is Darwin stuff, isn't it?
Okay, let's go, Allison.
Ironically, this place has been fiercely protected since the 1950s.
These corals would have been destroyed when the bomb went off. Now it's all new growth. Just fantastic.
In the wake of the blasts, the Commonwealth instructed the Navy to chase all intruders away. It was a no-go zone until the 90s, when Canberra handed the islands over to Western Australia, on the condition the area remained a marine park.
Because these islands were radioactive and so remote, they were left alone. So life returned, and it returned in abundance. This is the pathway of whales and whale sharks. When you come here, you feel like you've come to another planet.
The incredible regeneration here was almost scuppered by a threat no one saw coming. For decades, there was one small band of men allowed access to these waters, pearl divers. They're gone now, but the pearlers left behind a devastating blight on the islands: cats and rats.
They were brought in by the pearling luggers. We believe rats were released first off a sinking ship, and they swam ashore. They're very good swimmers. And the rats became such a problem that the cats were then introduced to try and control the rats.
For 3 years now, scientist Keith Morris from WA's Parks and Wildlife has led a team to get rid of the feral invaders. And they're reintroducing the rightful inhabitants: booties, spectacled hair wallabies and bandicoots. And tonight he's catching them to check on their welfare.
There we are, number 2. Here he is.
Oh, look at him.
That's a golden bandicoot. So you can see why some people mistake them for rats.
Keith's work is called the Montebello Renewal Program.
Here's another one.
The repopulating is mostly funded by energy giant Chevron, as a condition of its licence to build the nearby Gorgon natural gas project. One of its gas platforms is visible on the horizon, and David Ireland's anxious that the Montebellos might have yet another threat on their doorstep.
30 to 40 kilometres south of here is a flourishing oil and gas industry.
Yeah, well, that worries me, because mining or maybe a container ship full of oil, we could really damage this place again, maybe even more than before.
It's been a remarkable recovery. A nuclear test zone becomes a kind of Garden of Eden. These days, most visitors come on fishing charters. But signs at the bomb sites warn them not to spend more than an hour on shore and not to touch anything. The challenge now is to keep protecting the Montebellos and not to repeat the spectacular mistakes of the past 60 years.
My life is filming animals, and for me it's hard to find places on the planet now that aren't stuffed up, that aren't being overfished or damaged or polluted. Look around us, look at this place. It is so special, such wonderful raw wilderness, and we blew it up once before. We don't want to stuff it again.
Hello, I'm Allison Langdon. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.